putting your perfectly functioning 400-pound carbon fibre skates into the oven at 100 degrees and leaving them for 20 minutes in the hope of achieving a better fit is definitely a pretty anxiety-provoking thing to do. I was concerned that they might, crack, shrivel up, become charred, or, shrink down to an unusable size. But what I was hoping for was this would be an absolute game changer in terms of reducing the pain that I was experiencing on the insides of my ankles. So if you want to find out a bit more about my experience of heat molding, then be sure to stick around. So I've been riding my Adapt Brutales for well over a year now, and I absolutely love the skates. At first, I wasn't really getting any problems in terms of fit. I had them custom made for extra width, as I had particularly wide feet, and I was getting the kind of odd niggle kind of around the inside of my ankle, but nothing that really justified taking any drastic measures. But more recently, over the last couple of months, I started to experience, quite an increasing severe pain around the ankle bones on the inside. After an hour or so skating, was finding they were coming back kind of red and quite inflamed. So I felt like it was probably time to do something about this, and heat molding is the recommended process. I will just say at this stage that this isn't meant to be an instructional video, and this is more just meant to be kind of documenting my experiences, maybe just to help you kind of get the courage to do this if this is something that's suitable for you. So if you are looking for specific instructions, then I'll leave links in the description to the videos that Adapt provide, which give a step-by-step guide about how to do this properly. Like I've said, what I was wanting to do was to eliminate pressure points, and one of the things that Adapt recommend to do that is to kind of use a tool to exaggerate that pressure point when your foot does go into that that kind of hot malleable skate, so that you actually achieve the results that you want. In order to do that, I just used a couple of sheets, a couple of squares of foam that came in some flat pack furniture, and I literally just taped them to my ankle bones, so that ankle bone was pushed kind of out more three-dimensionally, with the hope of giving a better result. Once I'd done that, I just took off the frames and wheels, but I left the sole plates and all the hardware in place, which Adapt say is fine to do. I did buy myself an oven thermometer, just because I wanted to make sure that my oven was at the right temperature, as I'd kind of heard experiences online of people finding that their oven temperature was actually way out of what they thought it was, and that had led to some crispy looking skates coming out of the oven. So I preheated my oven to 100 degrees, as Adapt recommend for the elimination of pressure points. Lined the base with cardboard, as I didn't have the bag that come with the skates, which Adapt say can be used. And set a timer and sat in front of the oven and waited, looking quite ridiculous in a chair with my wife, giving me the appropriate level of teasing as I watched my skates slowly baking in the oven. After 20 minutes of watching them like a hawk, I took them out really carefully, and I found that they weren't as malleable as I expected. And they weren't as hot as I expected either. I was wearing gloves, which I would definitely recommend, because the hardware obviously is very hot and you could very easily burn yourself. But they weren't the kind of floppy, dangerous mess that I was expecting to be. They'd held their shape fairly well, and they just felt like you could bend them, but you would be hard pressed to do any significant damage just by taking them out of the oven. When I put my feet in, they weren't as hot as I expected. They just felt kind of pleasantly warm, but certainly I didn't, from my perspective, feel like I was any risk of kind of burning my feet or anything like that. It felt a perfectly comfortable temperature. Adapt say fairly non-specifically to leave your feet in there for a couple of minutes. I wanted to do that for a little bit longer, so I left it for about 15 minutes or so, and then I had to rush off and do something else. So having been satisfied that I'd done the process properly, I took the skates off and put my kitchen table and went to pick up my daughter from the childminders. When I came back, I had a look at the skates, put them back on, and I found that it definitely had pushed out that pressure point really quite nicely, and it felt like it was going to be a much more comfortable skate. But nothing disastrous had happened whatsoever. There were no cracks. The skin looked exactly the same as it did when I put them in, and I managed not to burn myself, and that was which was definitely a bonus. I was going skating later on that evening, and putting on my skates and rolling around, I felt a difference straight away, just massively increased comfort around my ankles. I did also find that the cuff had been pulled in quite significantly, which for me was definitely a good thing, because I just kind of found that there was a little bit too much like medial lateral movement of my leg kind of within that cuff, and I found I was having to pull it really tight. So that was an additional unexpected kind of bonus from that. But is something to bear in mind, that if you didn't want your cuff pulling in a bit, then definitely don't, increase the tension, don't put the tension, your laces as tense as you might do otherwise. So having spent 3 hours on my skates, I can tell you that this was an absolute game changer. I'm really pleased, with the results. I didn't experience any pain whatsoever, and it just allowed me to just focus on what I enjoy doing, just enjoy the skating, and I wasn't thinking, about the skates in any negative way. I was just enjoying the experience, which is what it's all about. So I hope this video has kind of put your mind at ease if this is something that you'll want to do but feel quite anxious about it. It's definitely not as kind of scary or difficult as you might expect. I think that it could go wrong if you didn't understand the instructions quite clearly, and if you weren't careful and attentive during the process. I think with a bit of courage and hopefully a bit of confidence you gained from listening to my experience, this is something you can go ahead and do if you do feel that it is something suitable. So go ahead and give a thumbs up if you did get some value from this video, and of course subscribe to the channel if you want to see more blading content. If you do have any questions about the process, obviously contact Adapt, or you feel free to leave any questions you might have for me in the comments below as well. I'm Chris Chadwick, and this is Keep Rolling. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.